Good afternoon, brothers. Yeah, I am Clay, and I'm up here tonight to introduce a couple of our brothers who are going to be doing the task talk. They're going to be telling us their stories, a little bit about their life and their journey on how they got to Red Barn. So first up, it's going to be James Carson, one of the managers in the house, or not a manager in the house, leader in the house. Um, Also, he's a crew lead, and yeah, without any more, let's give it a hand.
Good evening, family. I'm James. So I have the privilege and opportunity, honor to share a little bit about my story. That something that we haven't been able to really do since we get into the program. Right, we're told to keep our stories to a minimal. I'm still going to work on doing that. You guys know how I like to talk. Um, but here's an opportunity for me to be able to share a little bit of my background, and then more so what Red Barn's doing for me now. Right, so I'll start by I'm James Carson, actually James A. Carson. I was born in Provo, Utah at about 4:30 a.m. on December 12th of 1980. Um, Immediately came from a broken home due to the fact that my mother and father didn't get along. They were doing their own things, right? Like they had their own problems, they had their own substances. They were still kids, man. They didn't have a lot to do, a lot of knowledge of what to do with kids, right? And I have to start off with, I have three siblings. I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me. And then I have an older brother that's 2 years older than me. And then I have a younger sister that's 8 years younger than me. She obviously comes along later. So, my parents, they struggle with substances, addictions, those types of things. I don't really know a whole lot about my dad's life or what he was, other than he was a very abusive person. He suffered from alcoholism, and didn't know how to deal with life, right? Not giving him any excuses, not giving him a way out, because I figure that with the knowledge that I've gained, I can be more understanding about how that goes in life, man. We all have our things, so our vices. So basically, I remember being told that when I got home from the hospital, there was a lot of arguing, those kinds of things. Um, Fast forwarding about a year, like there was a lot of abuse. I was hospitalized a few times as a child because of the cheating that my dad was doing. His girlfriend slash fiance was very abusive to me because she did not like me because I was Shelly's son, right? Understandable, I guess, for somebody who's sick in their own head as well. But um, as I grew up, my mother and father basically went their separate ways. My mom got involved in another relationship. Um, we lived with my grandmother for a little while. It's kind of crazy. I have to just share this with you. Like there was some kidnapping going on back and forth. Like my grandma would get me away from my dad, and then they would come and take me away from her, and it was crazy. It was a crazy story that I get to be able to hear from them, right? So my mother disappeared for a little while. I stayed with my grandmother. She raised me for the first probably 2 solid years that I really remember. Um, I was told stories about my dad never being there, which later on in life I found out wasn't completely true. I seen videos. I tracked him down, but get into like when I was around 5 years old. Um, I always thought I should always just be a happy kid, right? And I guess that kind of goes along with my LE today that I shared, that covering up emotions and feelings with sarcasm, with comedy, whatever that may be like. So for the most part, I remember being smiley and happy go lucky. Um, I went through a phase where I wasn't being fed, that kind of stuff. So I ended up hospitalized again. Uh, let's fast forward to some better stuff, though. That's just some of those things that happen in life, right? Unfortunate, but it's okay. So around 7 years old, I remember having a really good stepdad. His name was Frank, right? And he took very good care of us. I do remember him being a drinker. He would take us to the sand dunes. We did all sorts of things, horseback riding, anything that we possibly wanted to do. He was very outdoorsy. Um, had a pretty good life, man. At a young age, I chose to pick up stealing candy. Like, I don't know how it even happened. Just one day it occurred. Like our neighbor friends came over and they said, uh, let's go to the mall and go to the Sugar Shack and get some bags and fill them up with candy. And I was like 7 or 8 years old, not exactly sure. Um, we ended up getting arrested. More so just got a ride home, right? Like it was like we need to take you home to your parents. I remember my brother telling me that I needed to fake cry when I got whipped with the belt so it would be over quicker. That's the thing I can find kind of funny now. So there was some cheating going on, and that caused a disaster in our life, man. Like it was chaos. Unfortunately, that led to a separation and then a divorce. Um, but this is where things get a lot better for a moment. We moved to St. George, and I got to start being a kid a little bit more. Like I enjoyed elementary in St. George, Utah, third through fifth grade. Um, Nothing too crazy went on in that time frame. Sixth grade, they have their own like sixth grade center down there. So when you're in St. George, you have kindergarten through five, and then you have your own sixth grade class. Like you go to your own school down there. So it was kind of cool. They prep you for junior high. I got really into horseback riding and cowboy things. Right, I had my ropers and my cowboy hat. I was good to go. Worked on a little farm, which turned into me working on a ranch. It was exciting. It was fun. I got a job at 11 years old, working for Hart's convenience store in Washington City, earning my own money. Because a thing that was awesome about my mother was that she wanted us to understand the value of things. And the way she did that was to allow us, find us ways to work for our money so we could provide for ourselves the things that she wanted us to earn, right? Just make sure that we really wanted them. That was cool. It taught me the value of working too, as well. So I grew up, did some cowboy stuff. I rode my first bull when I was 12. Um, wasn't very successful in that, but it was fun. And I found a friend named John, and that's when the chaos kind of began. For me, it was a lot of fun, man. Like I found joy in using drinking substance, right? I'm not going to sit and dwell on that or talk about that, but that's what we were doing for a little while, and we had really easy access to it, man. And we started to fall apart. We were having a lot of fun, right? Because we were kids, we didn't know better, we weren't taught any better. Got really bad. I actually became. They considered me at the age 12. So the thing that we had to help us with that was we got really involved into football, soccer, baseball, and in school. Um, Dedicated our next couple of years to that, which was awesome. Uh, just like any other kid, I like girls, cars, sports. Um, there was a time that we were carrying weapons and stuff, and that was really stupid too. And I'm not going to focus on that, but that was just a brief passing, right? So we got really into sports. We did very well. My friend and I had potential scholarships moving up through the eighth and ninth grade. They were telling us that we were going to be great in football, right? When we got to 10th grade, we had the potential scholarships to play football. And he moved away. And I think at that point is when I turned to using marijuana, man. And it was with the football crowd too, which the sad part about it is I ended up getting arrested in school for that in my sophomore year. Um, at that point, they kicked me off the football team. They expelled me from the school. I wasn't allowed to go to Washington County School District at all anymore. So I was got in my feelings. I didn't see it that way now, but that's the awakening I have now is that I got in my feelings. The whole world was against me. How dare they? Don't they know who I am? Don't they know what I was doing for the team? Don't they know how many friends I have? I'm James Carson, right? I guess that's when all that behavior started. You know, went from that to playing the victim immediately, right? So I moved away, did good for a couple of years in Washington State. Had a truck, snowmobile, doing well. Brother moved up there. Immediately returned to substance, just immediately. And that's what we started to do all the time. We got caught with some things, got kicked out of my uncle's home. We wanted to just be like, it was our decision. So we were like, no, we're just leaving. He wanted to get us some help, but we just chose to leave. We packed up the truck, left, came back, got to Utah, went right back to what we were doing, man. St. George, Utah. Uh, I chose to do something different. I moved to Utah County and I met somebody that didn't work out for me. Um, so immediately on a rebound, I met somebody else, which I'm very grateful for that I did, right? That was my kids' mom, and I have 4 children with her. And we did well for a while. Um, we were just loving each other, not using substances, that kind of stuff. And then we had 2 kids right away, basically, and back to back. They're 8 days shy of a year. My oldest is a girl, and I have 3 boys. And at that time, man, I don't I don't know how else to say it except for I became a selfish jerk, man. Like literally, that's all I can say is I only cared about me. I thought just because I was providing for them, I was a dad, a father. That's not what that is. That's not what that looks like. I was fooling myself. So the kids and I were great, but me and her were not. So she got tired of it. 2007, she decided she wanted to no longer be together, and good for her on doing that. And at that point, I chose to stay into my addiction. She went into an addiction. She got really into it, and she was going to go to prison for a long time. They gave me a choice. The state gave me a choice of what to do about the kid. They said I had 6 months to clean up, give them up for temporary adoption to her parents, and I had 6 months to clean my life up. Well, as you probably can imagine, I chose the selfish route, easier, softer way for me, which ended up being more hard, right? But I chose to give them up for full custody adoption because I couldn't get out of my dream. Whatever that excuse looks like, I'm grateful that I did for them to have a better life. After that, man, 12, 15 years becomes a blur. I can tell you, I tried everything possible. I got locked up 34 times. Uh, didn't know what I was doing, man. I was visiting psych wards, stay off the street, like convincing them that I needed things to make me feel better, right? To numb the pain or whatever that may be. It's crazy when I'm telling this story right now because like I remember these things, but hearing them saying them out loud is like validity, right? That I was struggling. So I moved up to Davis County, and I ended up doing drug court. I did good for about 2.5 years. I met somebody that I thought was the one, right? And not knowing that, not realizing that everybody is human beings. We have our own skeletons. We have our own problems, our own addiction, our own solutions to those, whatever that may be. Um, they were very supportive to me and tried to push me along to continue to do good. Somehow, I don't even know how it happened. Just as quick as it goes away, as quick as it shows up, right? Just like that, we were into substances together, addiction. With that, it started to get a little more dangerous. Um, one day I realized there was people shouldn't be in our lives that were, right? Just to simply put it. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. Man, I was scared, broken, alone, afraid then, and I didn't know what to do. So I just continued to roll with the punch. We decided to travel all over the state for a year and a half. I guess you could almost call it running, right? Running from our own problems that we created. And it was a lonely time, man. Like that's not where I wanted to be anymore. And for that, I got locked up 5 times, 5 different counties within a year's period of time. And it was everything was going downhill. I was looking at a lot of time in prison. That scared me because I told myself I would never do that, right? I could do all these little stays in counties, blah, blah, blah. Fast forwarding to where it gets to where I start to realize I really need help. I looked at myself one day in the mirror and I no longer saw anything but an empty shell of what used to exist. It was all that hatred, that sadness, that pain, that agony, that victim stance. I didn't realize what it was at the time, but I catastrophized it. Thank goodness I did for once. That was one positive time I can say catastrophizing helped my life. I talked to my probation officer and he told me that I was going to do some time in prison, if not a lot of time in county. I didn't want to do that. I was tired and I still couldn't put away my addiction. So told me that I needed to either choose Red Barn or I needed to get locked up, right? So January 19th, 2023, I was scheduled to come to Red Barn through him, through my probation officer at about 4 o'clock. And at 1:30, he texted me on my phone and said, "Hey, good news, James, you don't have to go to Red Barn Academy anymore. Like, we found a different solution. We just need you to check in more often. We need you to find a job and we need you to do some classes. You're good to go." Well, the shock of that was overwhelming, man. It was like, this is the time that I got to gain my spirituality back real quick. So I had lost it along the way, right? Or gave it away, chose to not use it. And God intervened in my life that day, extremely powerfully. Like, he gave me a gut wrenching feeling. Like, what are you going to do now? If this is your opportunity to change your life, are you going to take it and just roll and keep going where you're going now? Just throw your life away and end up dead tomorrow? Or are you going to make a difference? And not having anything held over my head for the most part, I thought, I'm not doing it, man. I started to convince myself I'm not going to do it. Well, then I received a text from the person, my spouse, right? And they told me I needed to talk to them immediately. I was very adamant to say, no, I can't do that. I'm going to Red Barn. I'm going to be gone for 2.5 years. And I need to go improve my life or I'm going to end up dead. They were encouraging to do that, but also wanted me to give them a call. At that point, I looked at the person I was staying with at the time and said that I need you to put me in the car and take me to Red Barn right now. And that was one of the hardest moments I've ever had in my life. Almost what I had to do to help my kids have a better life because of my selfish motives, right? It was really, really difficult. So we got here and, I cried the whole way. I talked to my mother all the way here and we talked about things that we'd never talked about in my entire life. But then I made the commitment to her, to myself, to whoever else might have been listening at the time. I choose to call my higher power God. And I just made the commitment at that time. So I got here, man, and this is where my story begins. This is where my real story begins, where my real journey began. I came to Red Barn Academy. I sat on the bench right about 2:30 in the afternoon, if I remember correctly. I was lost, broken, afraid, sick, still not feeling well from a few days before, right? I thought, there's no way I can do this. Then I hear some laughing down the hall, and I'm thinking, man, what's going on down there? I don't even know what that looks like. I haven't laughed for a long time. So then I think somebody else used this once in their story, and it's funny because I'm not the only one, right? You see the guys come around the corner, they're very friendly. They're like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'm so and so," and Zelly was actually the very first person I met. Real built, fit, looking like he's healthy and loving his life. I was like, maybe I want some of that. Maybe I'll try this out. So I put my tears away for just a minute. I literally cried for the first time I was here. So I decided to do the interview. I vaguely remember my interview. I was so intimidated, scared, right? I believe it was Logan, but I for sure know it was Azeli that interviewed that day. And, that's where they gave me a chance. They asked me, Logan said to me, he leans over the counter and says, "What are you doing? What are you willing to do to change your crappy life?" Right? I was like, "I'll do anything." I laugh about that now because I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what that meant, man. And I said, "Are you my probation officer?" "No, I'm the guy that just interviewed." "Oh, can't even remember that." He's like, "Yeah, you definitely need this place." So the greatest thing about that is I decided to try it, and Red Barn gave me a chance to improve my life, right? The difficult part about it was for me is I was terminally unique. I didn't really need this place as bad as everybody else. Once I met everybody, I thought I was better than everybody. I thought I deserved things right away that I hadn't even. So I pushed back on the process a lot. Those of you who've been here with me, you know that. You know that was very difficult to deal with. I always in my feelings. Mario let me cry on his shoulder for the first 2 weeks, thank God. And kept pushing forward. Thought I was going to leave a couple of times, man. It was very difficult to want to stay here because what I had the idea of love out there, right? It was an idea. I was in love with the idea of having somebody around when they weren't even really around, right? So these guys specifically Zelly, because he was my intern manager. He was very hard on me, but had a loving father touch to it. Joseph, I remember my very first time that I got tasked out that I wasn't in the kitchen. Joseph and I did some work in the barber shop. Man, this guy's been here forever. He knows what he's doing. Turns out he's only 10 days ahead of me in the program, right? So that was kind of cool. So I thought maybe this can change me really fast too. Anyway, just to touch on the fact that I didn't buy into the process. I didn't buy into the program. I thought I was better than everybody and everything that went on around me. Um, I had no idea what to think. I had a lot of help from brothers to keep me here, to support me, and that's why we tell you just to stay, right? Because if you can make it to your pillow that night, the next day is probably not even going to matter. You're going to be through it and over it. It's going to be just fine. John was my number one struggle. Well, I was my number one struggle. John just liked to point it out to me extremely often. John, the first time I went with John, I was whining and crying about something. He told me all sorts of things I'm not going to repeat. But it was wonderful, right? And I didn't see it that way. And the greatest thing about it, guys, is like right afterwards, he hands me a celery stick and says, "Here, have one of these." As we're driving down the road, and I'm like, I can't stand this guy, man. But the thing I love about being here at Red Barn, man, is I remember my 4th month, uh, walking by the mirror, and I was like, I paused for a second, and I was like, what? What is that? That like, it was a new image for me to look at. It was something different. It was a light in my eyes again. There was hope. Like I didn't know if I was going to stay or not. That's the truth. I didn't. But there was hope. And the way I got that was relying on others around me because I couldn't do this alone. I had no idea what to do, how to do it. So my intern phase was long. I think I was an intern for 114 days, either because I needed to wait for the next class or I was just acting up all the time. I'm not sure. My freshman phase wasn't too bad. They said I was on track to doing well. And if I got all my hours out of the way now, and got my behaviors out of the way now, I wouldn't have such a hard blue phase, right? Blue shirt. Well, that wasn't accurate for me at all. Because when I got my resident shirt, I was consistently into hours. Those hours that I earned for my negative behavior, I pushed back. Every time I opened my mouth, I was pushing back or being rude or for me, I'm the victim. Why is this happening to me, not for me, right? So I spent a lot of time in hours, thanks to Isaac being hard on me. I learned a lot throughout that. Still learning today, though, right? So I want to tell you this part of the story that's really amazing, and then I'll ask a couple of questions, right? So I never saw any of the passion that Red Barn had behind helping me. I didn't believe anything that they said up until probably about 12 months in the program. About 12 months in the program, John started talking to me about my little people, right? And what he could do to maybe help out with that a little bit. Talked to Dominic Bonacci. They told me to write letters, right? Because I waited long enough throughout the program. That's why we wait. There becomes a time in our program that we're given these gifts because we've earned them, right? So I wrote some letters and I couldn't get them right. You guys will never believe it, but all the letters I wrote were poor me. I'm a victim. Me this, I this. Every time I look back and I see Justin H and Lucas right now, I have to smile because, oh, and Chaz, I didn't see you sitting there too. But so that was my thing, right? Me. Still is. I just got a little better at not doing it all the time. So these letters were horrible. They're like, no, tear it up. Get rid of it, man. What are you thinking? Like, you can't write that to your kids, right? I'm just going to say it the one time. So then we move forward and I finally get one that's decent. And this is where the miracle happens. This is where I know that God intervened in my life again. That's why I know I'm supposed to be here at Red Barn. So it was, I don't remember what day, but it was, what day of the month or anything, but I remember it was a Tuesday. And I got this letter finalized and I was going to send it to my oldest because she's the rock. The part I didn't tell you, I'll tell you. She's told me 6 months before I came here, don't ever call me or my brothers again, ever. You're a dirtbag. You're a piece of garbage. We want nothing to do with you. You're nothing but lies, broken promises, all that stuff. And that she was right. So I write this letter and I take it to Dominic. He's like, it's good, man. I think you guys finally got one you can send. About 5, 10 minutes later, maybe I'm off on the timing, but Dominic comes and gets me. He's like, me and Mario need to talk to you up front right now. Oh, I'm going to the bench again. Like, what did I do this time? I can only imagine. Well, it had been that she called in and said, hey, I found out that my biological father is here at Red Barn Academy. He's doing something to improve and save his life. So I would like to be a part of that. Cool, right? Like that moment was surreal. It was emotional, but there was no emotion to it because I didn't know what to think, what to feel. Like, could this be happening? So the story behind that I have for you guys is when they tell us that we earn everything that we get, they tell us that we're worth it, so we should keep pushing forward. They're right about every single thing that they're telling us because they see the magic in us that we don't see in ourselves. We see the magic in you, right? Like we see things you don't, you guys see things I don't, right? So when you're being told these things, please listen to it. So he ended up coming to see me from Florida. First time in 17 years that we really had an interaction. Justin actually took a picture that day. I don't think I found that yet, but and it was a pretty magical moment, man. We didn't know what to say. For 2 hours, we didn't say much. Russell was in on that with me, I believe. He was there to see how awesome that was. And from that moment on, man, like I was locked in. Like I was a 100% believer that I was going to get to my workout no matter what. That I owed to give back to other people. You know, I wanted to be a leader when I was young and I wasn't ready. Like sometimes I may not even be 100% ready. That's why I got to ask questions, right? And lean on others. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a leader in the house because I wanted the title. I wanted to tell you guys what to do, how to do it, and when to do it, right? And that was the truth, and I didn't see that, and it was brought to my attention several times. So let's fast forward to where I finally became a leader and I got to get back to the house. So now I have the opportunity to help brothers out in the house. It's completely changed my life. I still wanted to do the workout. That's the only thing I was going to get to. I got to that point where I prayed about it for 3 months. I prayed about it for 3 months. That's the truth. I saw some things. I'll share with you real fast that Frederick, the unfortunate thing about Frederick, saved my life. It's it's sad that he had to leave that way, but I got to hear the whole conversation when he was telling John, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need this. I don't need this crap. You can't tell me all this, blah, blah, blah. So I had a big change in my life that day. I saw myself standing on a ledge, realizing if I do this over here, what I want to do for all of them, and I'll say my third year, I would end up dying. I would end up falling right off that cliff and reaching for those things that were right across the other side, right? All those dreams and hopes and desires that I've been wanting my whole life. So I chose to do something different. I chose to be scared and take that leap of faith and make one of the other hardest commitments I've ever made in my life, which was to choose to stay in and do my third year. And I did do it to help out and get back to the house. But guys, the reality of it is I chose to save my life, to polish up the man I want to become, the man I am becoming, to get some schooling underneath me, to be able to go reintegrate with my people and come back and be able to talk to the older brothers when I'm breaking down because life is scary out there. I've been on a couple of home visits. Society's not nice. So I want to say thank you for being my brothers. Thank you for letting me be a part of Red Barn Academy. I look forward to spending more time with you guys. That's all I have to. Okay. Any questions? A couple of questions if we have any. Max.
What's been your favorite, like, funniest moment that you've had?
Funny because we always get asked that. We always ask everybody that, right? I really can't tell you what's my funniest moment. I know that the experience I had at the restaurant was a pivotal change in my life too, because we had a lot of good times over there, man. People thought it was a punishment, but we got Justin over there, Lucas over there, Joseph was over there, Joseph was a beast over there. And that was some of the funnest times of my life, man. It's funny, I'll tell you this. Kay, my leader, he asked me, what do you want to do when you get older in the program? And I said, man, I want to go to the thrift store. I feel like I'll be good with customers. The only thing I don't want to do is go to the restaurant. So I got a little injury on the move and they put me to the restaurant, right? And I thought it was a punishment. I spent 10 and a half months there and I enjoyed the last probably 8 months of that because I finally stopped doing it out of just happened to do it. I did it with purpose and passion. So do everything with purpose and passion. And there's a lot of fun, exciting moments around here. Like my memory's not the sharpest, so I could probably dial in on some, but I've had a lot of good moments with all you guys. Yes.
You said get some school every year. What's your plan of schooling like? Where are you going to go for?
Question. So right now I'm about 20 something hours away from graduating high school, right, Jeremy? And which is exciting. I never wanted to do that, right? But I was pushed hard and I had the opportunity, but I'm grateful. I feel like I want to go into interior design and incorporate also with that some photography. I feel like that's something that'll be successful. It'll be fun. It'll be helping other people feel good about their things. And maybe I can think into some other things. But what I have to remember and put before anything there, schooling is important. But if I don't put my recovery first, I'll lose everything. So that's what I'm going to work on. Thank you. Anything else? Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Right on. Thanks, James, for taking the courage to get up here and share your story, man. We really appreciate it. Let's give him one more hand. And, now we got our older brother, Joseph Stafford, house manager, my intern manager. Really awesome guy. Let's get him up here.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about my past because, I feel like most of us can relate and our journeys on why we ended up at Red Barn. So I don't feel like it's that important to go too far in depth with that. And I'd like to share my experiences since I've been to Red Barn because, when I'm where I'm at right now in the program and I've had the luxury of watching all you guys program and to see you guys grow and a lot of guys like Jaden and Clay remind me of myself when I was where you guys were at your program. To where I'm at now and where I was. If I can inspire you guys to say if Joseph and other folks. So I'll start off. I was raised in a good home. We had dinner every night at 5, went to church every Sunday. Dad was married for 32 years. So I was a military brat. We moved around a lot. So as a kid, that's awesome. All these new places, try all these cool. And because my dad was gone a lot, there was some infidelity. So in 5th grade, my parents split up. And I blame my mom for that. You took away my dad, right? And that was my justification to start doing what I did. And I was an angry kid, man. I started acting out. My best thinking was if I can be rotten enough where my mom can't stand me anymore, maybe she'll let me go stay with my dad. And that didn't work out. And, eventually, I didn't do any of my schoolwork. I fought. I was bad and I couldn't be controlled. And it got to the point where when my mom couldn't even overpower me anymore, she would call the police. I wouldn't clean my room. I wouldn't do the dishes. And the result of that was her calling the police. I was uncontrollable. And, it took until the end of elementary school before I finally figured it out. And funny because what caused me to change, my 6th grade teacher made these ceramics. We'd have once a month class where she'd bring ceramics and I'll get to paint them. Because I misbehaved, I wasn't allowed to participate. So I'd have to sit there all day and watch these guys paint these. And that drove me so mad, quit acting up. So, and then I changed in 6th grade. So in junior high, I started doing well in school, and I started following the rules. And sports was my salvation. And I think the only reason my mom allowed me to do that is because it got me out of the house long enough for her to have some time without me around, right? And so, and if she took that away from me, who knows how I would have acted then. So I feel like that's the only reason why I was allowed to play. So then my dad fought for custody of us. I finally got my wish. I got go live with my dad in high school. And, changing schools, I had to find new friends, and friends that become friends with are the ones that your parents usually don't want you to. I quit playing sports. The stuff that always meant stuff to me didn't mean anything anymore. I just wanted to hang out with the cool crowd, and then I got in trouble, and my dad ended up getting remarried, moved out of state. So I moved back to my mom's. Whatever Joseph did, I made sure I got my way back into her house. I got kicked out of school, and I got in trouble with the law. And they gave me 1 year of in-house rehab. The only way I could get out of that is I got to move out of state, start over. I took that. So I moved to Kansas, started playing sports, and this is a little town. So even if I wanted to act out and smoke pot like I'd done before, it wasn't possible. So I decided to go to school, make the best of it, play sports. 3A. And I did so well in sports that I got a scholarship offer to play division. 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I got in a car accident. Compound fractured my shattered both. I was in ICU for 2 months, bedridden. And that's where my addiction started. So for the next 20 years, I abused pain medication. We all know what happens when we didn't harvest. Along the way, I had a kid, Crystal. I ruined that, pushed her away because it's always been about me my whole life. Very selfish, very contrived. Whatever Joseph's needed, I've made sure I've gotten. And, taking advantage of my family. Lost, my brother's always been my best friend. I lost that relationship. And it just got to the point where I couldn't stand the guy that I wasn't. Whatever it took to outfit him. I've never spent much time. We all know that. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. And that's when, right when I started my journey, August, I had UIs. The reason that I landed in jail is, all this came to a head, and I had to globalize it all. And my best thinking was, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to fight these charges. Then I ran into a guy that had come to Red Barn. And when I heard about him talking about Red Barn, every night, bedtime, right, he's my bunkie. Tell me more about this Red Barn. More about this Red Barn. And I was so excited about Red Barn. I started being an advocate for Red Barn. And everybody that came in, I was talking about Red Barn. I just thought it was a great. And on top of that, he said, when I wrote my letter, he said, put courtesy of Nicholas Anderson. Some. Then he showed me the flyer, and I looked, and I was like, no, that's not the same. Nicholas looked. And I had my dad calling back and forth the Red Barn to get over here, and come to find out when my dad had talked to Nicholas. Dad said, yeah, I talked to some guy named Andrew Nicholson. He runs the place over there. He says he used to run around with you. I'm like, I don't know anybody named Andrew Nicholson. I said, you mean Nicholas Anderson? He goes, yeah, that's the guy. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to go. One of my good friends runs the place. I'm good. Hey. And then I get here, and Nicholas comes walking. Hey, Nick, what's up, man? Oh, you finally made it over here. And he's all, my name's not Nick, it's Nick. This didn't work out the way I'd hoped, man. And Nicholas, because he knows me, man, he's had his foot on like the whole time. I appreciate it. I when I first got here, I hid in the cuts. I hid out in the gray, and my behaviors. I didn't get pulled up for the first time About 30 days in, I was with a group of guys out doing animals, and someone left the gate open, and Gracie got out and acted like a dog and a lady. So that's where my pull-up process started. So first thing I do is justify. I didn't even touch the gate. It wasn't missing. No, that's what I did, man. I struggled since I got here. The first of my program, I'm a guy that knows it all, guys all, and I think I know everything, and I've been justifying for so long in my life. I don't even know when I do it. Quick, finding a way out, justifying, making sure my side is. No way, it was my fault, and I had a hard time in games. The every time I'd sit there and think when I'm getting feedback, I'm like, that's not even how it went. He's this and that. Never finding my part, never trying to find my part, missing it every time. For the first year, I got the break speed. Bad. But, a lot of you guys didn't have a chance to see that, but it's true, man. I got lit up, and it was never usually the same behavior twice, but every single behavior there is, I got it. And after games, you can find me in the same spot every time. Mattered to kick baby, up against the wall. Kicked. Or he would always come and talk to me, and he's all, I know I can find you here. You're here every time. And missing the point, I'd want to go into deliberation and say what I wanted to say, and never got the chance. And I have health issues with my back, so I thought that's why I got the chance over. I was over there for a year, and I was miserable over there at first. Kay and Chris, I was you know how it is. And I got my blue shirt, and Chris came up to me one day and said, Joseph, are you ever going to want something more for yourself? He's all, well, you're better than what you're acting. It's hard to see someone with your potential struggle. He's all, you have what it takes to be a crew lead. Start using the process, but there's two things you need at Red Barn. You can know the position well, have to use the process. And I knew all the positions well, but I didn't use the process. I never gave feedback. I hated it. Never used the process. And it got to the point where Nicholas said, Joseph, if there ain't 2 in the box, you're getting 12. I made an agreement. I made a goal with Chris that I'm going to start using the process. Next thing you know, the day I got my Lucas got crew lead. So I had these goals, and I had this ambition. This is the first time in my program, 7 months in, that I actually wanted to try something. And I did pretty good, I think. I was doing what was asked of me, and I'd gotten really close with Chris, the staff member, and a little too comfortable. I got pretty complacent. I had no problem using the process for things like, if you sent out a gluten-free order when you weren't supposed to, but when it came to letting people bleed or being inappropriate or objectifying women, I wasn't doing that's the important part that I was missing. I was letting the staff member not hold me accountable, and we were contracting up, and then I ended up getting fired. And we've all had the thoughts of the day I got fired was about 52 hours ago, the house, and then games was that night. Isaac, thank God I only had him for 2 weeks as a house manager. That night he gave me another 24 hours, so I had a good chunk. And I was mad. I was about ready to pull my hair out. And I was about ready to leave, and I was walking out. I didn't know which exit I was going to go, but I was going to go out one. Mario walking out of the right. Joseph, looks like you're about to cry. About ready to freak out. He's all, just so quit acting like a little kid, man. Just pull ups like a champ. Go do your hours and crying. So I did it. And then I was told I was going to go out on a movie company. I didn't give myself a chance. I can't do this. I can't go out there and all this. On my first day, Neil at one of the retirement midday. John called and said, "Hey Neil, is Joseph still there?" He's like, "Has he been playing all day?" And Neil's all, "No, actually." So when I heard John do that, I was like, "Well, you know, it didn't sit right with me that this is how they thought." But I made a goal with myself that I was going to do the best I could out there for this time. I said to myself, if I want to get off the moves, go up and do it. Gusto. Fun. Come to find out, the best time out there. Had a great time at the Chavs. All these guys being awesome. And then, the changing point in my program, John asked me, this is what changed. Being in a position where I had to be example all the time. Being in a position where how could I ask these guys? And having to do that all the time. That's when it changed for me, and I finally, for the first time, was able to see the power of what Red Barn, right? When I seen these guys first come in, the emotional wrecks, have no idea what to do, how to deal with things. You know, through my experience, I was there and help walk you guys through it and help you guys get through your day and saw how important that was. That's what did it for me, and that's what filled my cup. And when he asked me to do it for another term, and I was in term 6 months, the best 6 months of that. You know, that's what's led me up to where I am now, man. A lot of you younger guys didn't get to see me go through the struggles. And when you see me now, I'm sure it's hard to believe that this I went. I did, man. This program is the hardest thing, but saved my life. You guys are ever struggling, trust me. Any thought that you guys have had in your head that you don't want to be here, or this is too hard, or nobody understands what I'm going through, trust me. I've had every single thought. I wanted to leave a million times. I haven't agreed with a lot of stuff here. As miserable as I was for that first year, doing all those hours, you know, standing here today, I can say I appreciate it. It was necessary. When you guys are hit, disagree, it'll all make sense. Easy for me to say, you know, listen to what I have to say. It's hard to just take my word for it, but you know, when I first came in, everybody said, look, I'd look at all the guys in the black shirt, I think hard to believe that guys were right. And now that I've got to see guys go through this, Neil, Justin, we were all out of control, emotional. All these guys all beat. You guys need to stay here and stick it out because anytime that's all I got.
Well, did you, while you were an intern manager, I'm just curious, did you have a favorite intern by any chance?
Of course not, man. So I appreciate no, I loved all my interns. Like Jay, I struggled with him. He didn't want to do anything. He was lazy when he first got here, and even though he stepped in like I seen a lot of growth in him and Jaden, man. Jaden was just like me, always had something to say, push back, knows everything. And the difference that you are when you first came in, amazing, man. I've got to being a part of seeing. It's cool. I hope you guys don't have a chance to do like if you guys put anything out there, like any position on the option, it's like ask the same question you ask any intern manager prior. What position or role have the most growth, most power, what Red Barn does. Nathan, intern manager. It's the coolest experience by far. All the interns, even the ones that weren't under me, man, you guys are awesome. Without you guys, we have you guys are a big part of what we do. I was an intern, Dave was an intern. We're all interns, right?
What is the one behavior that was the hardest for you to work on? Or you still work on it? And if you want to change it, change it.
I don't know if I can ever change it. I'm selfish. I'm very selfish and very entitled, but with the help of Red Barn, most of the time I can recognize it, not act on it, right? You know, I'm pretty selfish and pretty entitled, and it's still about me a lot of time, but now I can also make it about somebody else to where I couldn't do that before. I can see the power in helping other people and being of service for no reason than other just to help somebody else out. That's something I could never do before. It's always been about me. And I still have all those same selfish entitled thoughts, but with the help of Red Barn and you. I choose to help other people more than I choose to help. That's something.
At what point did you have that moment where you realized that Red Barn did something that you could have maybe done for yourself? Like the aha moment, right? That it's working, that something good is that. When was that moment?
Off the top of my head, man. So before Red Barn, I was a spineless jellyfish, a doormat. I'd let anybody do anything around me. I didn't care. It's just here today, if it ain't my pig, it ain't my farm. I don't know. But so for the majority, for that first year of my program, I was the same way. I did the same thing. And, about a month into my intern manager, I remember Ruben cooked grilled cheese sandwiches. And he made an announcement that said only start with a half of a sandwich. And Brandon A was the first guy up, and I seen him wiggle on the sandwich and it wouldn't come apart, and he put both on my plate. And from over here, I yelled at him. I was like, "Hey, man, don't do that." And I was like, "Holy God, this is working, man." I'm like making guys follow the rules, something I never did, man. And without even knowing it, man, it transformed me. The great thing about interns is if you have a hard time using the process and you're with all of them all the time, every day, yeah, the process, you can use the process a lot. And so those guys helped me probably more than I helped them at first. So. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Joseph. Appreciate coming up and telling your story, and took a lot of courage, I'm sure. Gives me a lot of inspiration to know that guys can go through the first half of their program, living on hours and stuff, and then end up becoming house manager and intern manager and stuff. Like, I really look up to you. I hope you know that. So, and I really connect on James's story, his childhood and stuff like that. I really connected with that a lot. So, give these guys both another hand and yeah.